Okay, this video segment is going to be in many parts, so I have much to say, but I'm not going to bore you with an hour-long video, so I'm going to break it down into bits and pieces as they flow. I'm going to entitle this A Deconstruction of God and Faith, and I'm going to try to point out certain examples of how and why God and faith became predominant and necessary to the majority of people in society and civilization. First off, I want to point out, if you look at God, definition of God, if you look at it from the most primitive scriptures, primitive evidence that we have of the first peoples who've identified a God or a religion of sorts, it typically revolves around natural elements, such as, and always stuff that they depended on for survival. The sun, rain, air, earthly elements that were necessary for their survival, but that they had no control over. And that's a good point, because they had no control over it. So control had a big deal to do with all of this. What man can't understand, what he can't control, it makes him nervous. It's unsettling. So man will develop concepts, religions, philosophies, often mystically inclined, to understand his environment that he has no control over. Because, well, let's face it, the unknown and not being in control is a scary thing to most people. As society progressed and we started to look outside of just simply our immediate environment, we started looking at the cosmos. We looked to the cosmos. We look to the stars, the moon. We see that there can be some association with our immediate environment, hence, like, rains more in the winter, it's dry in the summer. Well, all this has meaning. All this has meaning. And people needed to know, when are we going to eat next? When's the next flood going to come? Shit like that. Well, it's up to God. So let's pray to this star. Let's pray to this moon. Let's pray to this sun. Let's just pray and worship these cosmological cycles that will predict when the fuck we're going to eat next. Time moves on. Okay, let's just skip forward a little bit. Quite a bit, actually. Because there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of gods. For some strange fucking reason, everybody currently thinks their God is the right one, but as history has presented itself, current gods are a fraction of the majority of gods, and all of the majority of gods have all but died, to be replaced by new gods. So yeah, your God is a shit eater. Your God will be forgotten about one day too. Current day, people, we look for meaning in our lives. We look for meaning. Example, my mother died of breast cancer when she was only 40 years old. Tragic. Unexplainable. We don't know why it was her. We don't know why it was her time. Why she was taken so young. Well, it must be God's will, right? It's God's will. It's got to be God's will. Because God is the question mark to fill in the gaps that we can't answer. Why did my mother, who was loving and I loved her, caring, only 40 years old, died of breast cancer? What did she do to deserve it? Don't answer that. It's fucking chaos. It was God's will. There's an answer. It's always God's will. Just like, why did my 7-year-old daughter get raped and molested by this fucking man, or run over by a fucking truck in the intersection? There's no reason for that. It's God's will. God has a master plan. God has a divine plan that we cannot change, because we are not God. But God has that plan. And because of that, as it is God's divine plan, everything must be okay. There's order in our lives. It is no longer chaos. It is no longer circumstantial. It is fucking God's divine will. It is His plan. It is written in stone, and it cannot be changed. Unless you pray. But if your prayers don't get answered, well, it doesn't matter, because it was God's will to begin with. That's why it can't be changed. So why bother praying to God? If everything is written ahead, if everything is written for us, if our future is already paved and chiseled and stoned, why bother praying? In fact, why bother believing in God? Why bother trying to be a better person to appease this God if he has already decided our fate? Interesting question. Why is God seemingly indifferent to us? Why does he appear to have no concern over the earthly affairs of others? Devoted Catholics, devoted Christians, devoted Muslims, devoted people of all faiths suffer horrible, untimely, unjustified deaths and misery, famine, hunger, whatever. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because it's chaos. There is no God. The universe moves along with or without us. It is chaos. There is no divine intervention. There is no heavenly plan for us. Nothing is written in stone. It is fucking chaos. And it will be chaos. And people who realize this, and I believe that more people are realizing this today than 100 years ago, although I don't really know because I wasn't alive 100 years ago. People are more inclined, I believe, at least I can say I hope, to use critical thinking skills. And that's what separates a lot of people that, let's say, are atheists, Satanists, and people that are religiously inclined, you know, that are God-fearing people, regardless of that God, is that at a certain point in your development as a child, you develop critical thinking skills. Most of us do. And you either question what has been told to you, question your environment, and demand logic and a reason to understand science, to understand what is going on, or you turtle in your shell and you believe in whatever faith happened to be your parents and that they taught you. God, there is no God. And if there is a God, he doesn't give a fuck about you. He's completely indifferent towards everything that goes on this world. He doesn't care if a child gets molested. He doesn't care about the pain and suffering of others. He doesn't care how many millions of people die from disease or hunger. He doesn't care. He's indifferent. So worship that God? Why? He's either incompetent, indifferent, or not there. And if you do believe in God, well, and everything is a divine plan, then why fucking bother to change? It's not going to change God's plan. It's stupid. None of it makes any sense. Just saying. Think about it.